Watch this fella. He's not shopping, he's a thief. He's putting a faceplate, a skimming device, over the point of sale terminal. So when you swipe your EBT card, the skimmer reads your account data, and now that thief has access to your money. But this guy believes he has the answer.
So my legislation S7823 is a bill that would require the use of chip technology, similar to the technology that we see on debit cards and credit cards.
State Senator Jose Serrano represents the South Bronx and East Harlem. His bill would mandate chip-enabled EBT cards because that chip uses encryption, making it harder for guys like him to steal your funds. So transferring all of that to chip technology sounds expensive. How would we pay for it?
Well, it's hard to quantify how much it would cost for in the state of New York.
But we can estimate the cost by looking at the cost in California, one of two states due to transfer their EBT cards to chip technology this summer. California allocated $50 million to make the switch, which is a fraction of the money that state loses to skimming, an estimated $10 million a month.
Over time, this will save money in ensuring that people are not losing their benefits. They won't have to reapply to get their benefits back that they lost.
There have been a number of congressmen and women who have proposed chip technology. Why not let the federal government take the lead on this and bear the expense rather than having New York do it?
We in the state, as elected officials, look for ways to find solutions, but also to augment the work that the federal government could be doing. But I do think it's important that we take the lead in the state and that we show a good, aggressive model. Hi, how are you?
I am well. I am so sorry for the delay. I take care of my 86-year-old father, and he fell this morning.
Oh,
But he's okay. Nothing's
okay.
broken, but I
Right.
couldn't leave until we made sure all was well.
That's wonderful. Very understandable. Sorry to hear about him. I hope he'll be okay.
No, he's doing well. He's doing well. And the falls are always a little scary, but fortunately, my daddy has some very strong bones.
Good.
I'm telling you, he really
That helps.
that helps.
Yeah.
Just in case someone else uses this interview, I'm going to go ahead and start recording here. If you wouldn't mind saying your name and spelling it for me. Oh, and she's already started recording for us. Saying your name and spelling it for me and telling me what area of the state you represent.
Great. My name is State Senator Jose M. Serrano. That's Jose, middle initial M, last name Serrano, Serrano. I represent the 29th Senate District, which covers parts of the Bronx and Manhattan, in particular, the South Bronx and East Harlem.
Thank you so much. For all of the states, certainly, EBT skimming has been a huge problem. We've seen a real uptick here in the Rochester area. In fact, I just spoke to two EBT skimming victims, and their accounts were completely drained. Of course, when you are some of the most vulnerable among us, draining your EBT card can be a real hardship. So tell me about the bill that you are proposing.
Well, you're correct. Losing EBT funds is really catastrophic in communities. These programs are intended to ensure the access to healthy and nutritious foods within our community, and anything that gets in the way of that, and in this case, skimming and stealing of these benefits, has a detrimental effect on the very communities, the most vulnerable communities that need them the most. So my legislation S7823 is a bill that would require the use of chip technology, similar to the technology that we see on debit cards and credit cards, and have that implemented on EBT cards. It will add an extra layer of security for these cards to ensure that the people who need the benefits the most are getting them and that they're not winding up in the hands of scam artists.
So certainly this sounds like a huge undertaking. I would imagine that we are talking about multi-billion dollars are funded through our EBT system. And so transferring all of that to chip technology sounds expensive. How would we pay for it?
Well, it's hard to quantify how much it would cost for in the state of New York. I do believe, though, that it is an important step to ensure that benefits are not lost and that the individuals who need them the most get them. Um, so there may be upfront costs. Again, hard to quantify. There will probably need to be changes not only to the cards themselves, but to the technology on how these chips are read, how the technology and the EBT transfers are made. However, over time, this will save money in ensuring that people are not losing their benefits. They won't have to reapply to get their benefits back that they lost. So I believe, and many people believe, that this is an important step in ensuring that the money that is needed gets into the right hands. And I should add that not only does this provide a basis for nutritional foods in our community, but it also is an economic driver within communities because folks use these at local bodegas and grocery stores, and all of that is part of the economic footprint within a neighborhood. So it is a benefit to not only the recipient, but also to the economy in the neighborhood.
No doubt, no doubt. We do have some examples. California and Oklahoma are both switching to chip technology. I think I read that California's what they ended up funding to transfer this was somewhere around the nature of 50 million. So we have some examples of how this was done. Are you looking to those states to see exactly what some of the hurdles and pitfalls are in trying to do this?
Sure, absolutely. I do think that we have models to draw upon from other states that are starting to move forward with this. There is a lot of talk in every corner of the state of New York and throughout the nation because this is becoming a widespread problem. Since the pandemic, there have been more and more of these skimming types of theft of EBT. And, it's so insidious because it is targeting probably the most vulnerable among us and those who really need these benefits to ensure that they can access nutritional and healthy foods in their community. So I think other states are seeing that. They're trying to find ways to mitigate this issue. Chip technology way, we already have an industry standard. This will ensure that we have that extra layer of protection to make sure that this happens. I feel that there is support for it in every corner, whether it be in Rochester or in the South Bronx and East Harlem. We're all dealing with this problem. We're all suffering through it. We have to make sure that we find ways to mitigate it.
And ultimately, the taxpayers are paying for the theft because through, I think, September of 2024, the federal government is allowing for the reimbursement up to 2 months for any theft of your EBT funds. So this not only affects, of course, those who are beneficiaries, but it also affects taxpayers.
Oh, that's correct. It does create additional burden. And when you lose benefits and then they're replaced as they should be replaced because we don't want the victims of this fraud to go without food. Sadly, that's what's happening at times. So it is, I think, critically important that we get those funds replaced as quickly as possible. But you're right, when that happens, now taxpayers are paying an additional amount whether it be through the federal government program or through state resources, it is still a necessary expense. But we could ultimately save money, to your point, by having this chip technology, thereby hopefully mitigating a good portion of these skimming fraud scams that are happening, and ensuring that the funds are getting into the hands of the people who need them the most. They're able to put food on their table, and access to healthy, nutritious foods that they need.
No doubt. Um, the last time I reached out to the state about chip technology, I was told that the USDA would have to take the lead on that, that it was not the state's choice to do that. Were they incorrect?
I'm unsure of that answer. I don't want to give you incorrect information, but my understanding is, and based on what California is attempting to do, that there would be some power within the states in order to change the way that they handle their cards. And in this case, the EBT benefit cards within the state of New York are administered by the state of New York. Thereby, I believe that the technology is something that we could implement on a state level. Of course, anything that we do will have to be hand in hand with the federal government, as they are the providers of this funds. But again, I think all involved will see a pretty immediate benefit to this overall program, because it will save money for both states and federal government. But ultimately, it will ensure that constituents and individuals within the state of New York and from every corner of the state are not going without their necessary food. People should not be without their ability to eat because of they are the victims of fraud.
There have been a number of congressmen and women who have proposed chip technology. Why not let the federal government take the lead on this and bear the expense rather than having New York do it?
More than happy to have the federal government implement this program. I think, oftentimes we in the state legislature, we look for ways that we can create solutions to immediate problems that we're seeing out in the field. I've had a number of constituents come forward in East Harlem and in the South Bronx, expressing their frustration at being the victims of a scam of this nature. We in the state, as elected officials, look for ways to find solutions, but also to augment the work that the federal government could be doing. But I do think it's important that we take the lead in the state, and that we show a good, aggressive model on dealing with this fraud. But yes, I think we should be doing this in tandem with the federal government, and all states hopefully will be able to adopt better security measures within their chip technology, to help avoid scams.
I combed the USDA's website, sites yesterday, and they said that they were providing technical support to states who are moving to chip technology, but I saw no mention of financial support. Will you be asking the federal government for their help in changing to this technology, considering the fact that our magnetic swipe technology is ages old? The rest of the world has moved past it.
Sure. I do think that we would be doing that we'd be looking for leadership from the federal government on that. And of course, these are tough financial times. We have to ensure that we get the support from the federal government to help implement these changes. But again, I think, if people are concerned with the sticker shock of a transfer of the technology from one set that we've had for many, many years to a new set of technology, again, over time, it will begin to pay for itself, because you will see an overall reduction. You will see, I think, better compliance with this really worthy program. And like I said, it's sort of twofold. I think there's an obvious benefit of ensuring that people who are the most vulnerable are getting access to healthy foods. I could then draw a line and say, access to healthy foods helps deal with health disparities that we have in our community. I could speak for East Harlem and the South Bronx. We have some of the highest incidence diabetes and heart disease. A lot of preventable illnesses that can be directly traced to lack of healthy foods or access to healthy foods. So this program ensures that folks get access to healthy foods, thereby helping to address health disparities. And then the other, I think, benefit of making sure that this program is working properly is you see economic activity at your local bodega, grocery store, and supermarket, which employs people from our community. So I do think it's a win all around to make this investment now and ensure confidence in this program. It will certainly inspire that. So I do feel pretty good going into next session that we can continue to move forward and build momentum for this.
And certainly I think, most people would argue that a beneficiary with an EBT card should have all of the same protections that I have with my debit and credit card. And I am protected with that chip, but I'm also protected with if my bank sees any unusual activity, they put a stop on that sale. For example, I bought a pizza for my family the other day. I was providing a $5 tip and accidentally, big thumbs, put in a $500 tip. And that did not go through. My bank stopped it. They saw that as being suspicious. Um, I was reading a law and policy nonprofit group, and they were very critical of the government's lack of protections for EBT cards, in that we have nothing that would, no kind of fail safe that would put a stop on, for example, all of these transactions that are happening out of state. The victims I've talked to, all of their transactions that drain their account were from out of state. So why don't we have those kinds of protections in place? Or do we? And I'm not aware of it.
Well, there should be an ability to lock the card by the user. But again, I mean, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking that there should be an education campaign to explain all the different ways that we can sort of control the usage of our EBT cards throughout the state of New York. So, and I think that would go hand in hand with chip technology. If we were to upgrade the way that these cards are functioning, I would presume that at that time we will have more control over the way that the cards are operating. So I do think it's important for us and government and as elected officials to help bring about awareness of the different features within this program to ensure that constituents who are using these are able to stop a card if it's lost or stolen, to know who to reach out to, all the different things. And it should be in all the languages that are spoken in our communities to
But
ensure
that
that no one is missing that.
But that puts the
Sure.
responsibility in the lap of the beneficiary. Whereas the bank takes a lot of responsibility for making sure I don't do something stupid, right? So there is the
Mm.
chip technology that protects me. There is also, if I'm out of town, like I was out of the country, forgot to tell my bank, and I did a transaction that was denied. And I remember, oh, I need to call Chase. They rejected that. They denied that because it was from out of the country. It was unusual. So they have taken a lot of the steps out of my hands to protect my money and theirs. Whereas it doesn't seem that the state or the federal government are putting the same kinds of protections in place to protect the people's money.
I think that's a very interesting point that you're making. I hadn't really thought about that. I'm not entirely sure how the banks go about doing this, if they do it through an algorithm where they see certain things happen and automatically something pops up on your end, or if they have personnel who monitor these transactions over time. I'm unsure how that works. And again, there's cost involved with those things as well. But to your point of there being sort of end-to-end protection, talking about chip technology in the hands of users, but also in the databases, and ensuring that there is monitoring of the way that the money is being spent, and to ensure that there isn't fraud. I mean, these are interesting concepts that I and my colleagues can sort of talk about and figure out the best way forward to ensure that folks have their benefits, are able to access support when they need it, maintain their privacy as well. There are so many different moving parts to all of this to ensure that we have the best system in place. But, I think as you're speaking, I'm thinking to myself, um, the silver lining in this dark cloud is that we are talking about the way these benefits are being implemented, and we're throwing around ideas that are really wonderful and important. And we should be thinking, how can we elevate this program? How can we ensure that people are getting the benefits? We can save money. We can help deal with health disparities and create the level of security that frankly already exists. It's not like we're reinventing the wheel. Chip technology is there. It's been in use for a very long time.
Mhm.
So we just need to move it to these cards.
Last question for you. Where does the bill stand, and how hopeful are you that you can get it over the finish line in perhaps the next legislative session? Because you proposed this in 2023, last year, correct?
Correct. And in the current, the most recent legislative session in Albany, this bill did pass in the Senate. The Assembly sponsor, Assembly Member Gonzalez Rojas, has shown tremendous leadership on this issue in general. And I feel very confident that this bill will move forward in both houses next year. And again, I think it's there. People are really concerned about this. And I think everyone is trying to find solutions, and they're all acting in goodwill. So I look forward to next year being very productive on this issue. Hopefully we move this legislation forward and we continue the discussion on how do we elevate this program, keep it as safe as possible, and ensure that benefits are getting to the people who need it the most.
If it passes next year, I lied, that wasn't my last question. If it passes next year, will you then move because right now I think the way it was written, I skimmed it yesterday, that chip technology needed to be in place by 2025. So then if it passes in 2025, would you then move it out, chip technology in place by 2027?
Right. I think currently it's June of 2026.
Ah,
I would work with the agency that would implement it to see how feasible it would be and the amount of time that would be needed in order to make it happen. If needed, we could amend the bill to make that change. However, the goal is for this to happen as soon as possible. When you consider that this is sort of an ongoing problem and it may only get worse
yeah.
as the people who are perpetrating this fraud get more savvy technology wise. So I do think as quickly as possible, and working closely with the state agency that would deal with the implementation, the conversion, and so on, to come up with a realistic time frame, but again, with a strong sense of urgency that this be done as quickly as we can.
Well, thank you so much. I've taken up a half hour of your time. Thank you so much for the work you do, and thank you for taking time with us today. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Take good care.
Take care.
Bye bye.